Beside you?
No, it was beside me. I think Mark's there, one or two, others there, and I've got my hat.
our town and our communities, we pray. Where there is illness, bring your healing touch. Where there is fear, strengthen us with the knowledge of your presence. Where there is uncertainty, build us up in faith. Where there is confusion, lead us into truth. Where there is discord, may we know the harmony of your love. We pray especially for harmony and restraint in Eastern Europe at this time. Would forces of war be pulled back from the brink? Would due international process be observed? And would the people of Ukraine be free to live in peace and in safety? Closer to home, we pray for those dealing with the aftermath of our recent storms, asking that you would give strength and resilience both to those labouring at the repair and clear-out work, and to those whose homes and lives have been devastated in recent days. For Her Majesty the Queen, we pray for a full recovery from COVID and restoration of her strength. And for our councillors they meet this evening, we pray for your wisdom, leading and vision, your inspiration and your grace, that in all their deliberations, discussions and decisions, they might serve one another and serve our community, and that through their work, we might all know your blessing on our town. Through Jesus Christ, our Lord. Amen. Amen. So as we draw our prayers together, let me invite you to join me, if you wish, in the words of the Lord's Prayer, praying together. Our Father, who art in heaven, hallowed be thy name. Thy kingdom come, thy will be done, on earth as it is in heaven. Give us this day our daily bread, and forgive us our trespasses, as we forgive those who trespass against us. And lead us not into temptation, but deliver us from evil. For thine is the kingdom, the power, and the glory, forever and ever. Amen.
Can I thank you very much, Peter, before you go?
Good.
Our colleagues have 15 minutes maximum of questions. If there are questions from members of the public, and welcome to you too. Are there any questions from any members of the public? Councillor, I think you're a councillor whether you like it or not. You're welcome to ask a question, but it should be from where you are. Can't see the point in going through this charade. You are a councillor, you can't escape from it unless you resign.
Also, member of the public. We've already set the precedent.
I know. I think we've been overkind to you. I accept the blame for being overkind. But if you wish to ask a question, you may do so.
As a member of the public.
As a councillor, that's what you are. You cannot escape it. I'm inviting you to ask a question now from the council place. Please get on with it.
You can tell by the tone from the chairman and the mayor that he doesn't like questions, which is why I have to become a member of the public to get a question in.
I think if you don't mind, I'm happy to speak for myself as to whether I like questions or not. Carry on.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. If you're only watching the mainstream news channels, you will not be aware that in New Zealand and Australia, police at the minute are taking extreme actions against protesters. They deploy what's called LRAD, which is long-range acoustic devices or sound cannons, against the people, and they're causing serious injuries. In Canada, they brought in the Emergency Powers Act. They trampled on protesters with horses, assaulted them and frozen their bank accounts and taken their money for protesting. The people in those three countries believe that their governments are corrupt. At home here, especially in Thetford, we have holes in the roads, rubbish all over the place, which the state does not sort out. At the government level, Tory and Labour opposition, they're all on the take. They've all done dodgy deals over the last 2 years, which is coming out in the news. And a lot of them have been arrested for sex crimes. That's at the national level. At the local level, we have the likes of Councillor Germany, Labour, and Councillor Brain, Tory, putting up our council tax and wasting money on things such as moving boats.
Councillor, could you come to your question? Could you come to your question, please, Councillor?
If I don't get interrupted, I will.
Is this a question, Councillor?
I'll just reiterate the last sentence for the question.
Is this a question?
We have councillors agreeing to waste taxpayers' money to the tune of 30,000. The public are getting fed up, and protests at local and national level will only get bigger. If they do get bigger, will both the Tory and Labour councillors at the Thetford Town Council tonight vote and lobby against of any sort of action like the Emergency Powers Act and the draconian measures that are being brought down to other English-speaking countries? Will the councillors agree that that should not happen here?
Thank you for your question. Are there any councillors who wish to answer the question? Councillor Brain, please.
Thank you very much, Mr. Mayor. Start off with a point of order. I am not a Conservative councillor. Haven't been so since before last May. I am an actual independent councillor on both this council and on the district council, of which I happen to be the chairman. I had no vote and nothing else to do with whether they moved the vote or they didn't. As a ward member and as the ward rep, I saw it as a very great advantage for my constituents because it was not being looked after, it was an eyesore and it did nothing for this town. So I applaud Bretland for actually taking the stance and the opportunity to get rid of it. As far as the governments in every other country, are we going to talk about Putin as well? We might as well have him in there as well. Got all the other people that have done things wrong. As far as I know, it is not on the remit of this council. We do not have any control over them. However much you would like us to, we don't. So, thank you for your concern for the world, but it's not quite what this council has been elected to do. So that, for me, would be the end of your statement, and could we please carry on with trying to help this town that we were elected to help. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you very much. Are there any councillors who wish to speak, please? Councillor Taylor.
Just a lot of the corruption that's gone at the higher level, the local level, a lot of it did happen when Councillor Brain was a Conservative. And I'd just like to say that government should be by the people, for the people, and it starts at the lowest level. And it should be pushed up, not pushed down to us. And I'm just saying, if it gets as draconian as it is all over the world, we need to start at our level to say, no, it's not going to happen to the people. That was my point. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Councillor Robinson, please.
Thank you. I've tried desperately hard to arrive at these meetings in a happy disposition, but each month we go through this charade of a councillor that's a member, not a member, in and out, I'm not quite sure, stepping out of the chamber. Is he trying to find Narnia? I don't know. But, first of all, to my knowledge, we've never been twinned with Auckland or Montreal, so I'm not quite sure what influence we have on Canadian and New Zealand's domestic affairs. Excuse me. Secondly, you've had a couple of statements made tonight about corruption at the local level. Now, I've agreed with most of the people around this table, and I disagree with most of you as well. But I've never had cause to question the integrity of my colleagues sitting around this table. And I think that's a scurrilous claim to chuck into the ether without any substantive evidence behind it. And I actually want the council to retract that. And furthermore, because I do believe we should be transparent, on the subject of the vote, my understanding is the Councillor Taylor, with a local businessman, was looking to purchase the boat. I'm quite happy to be disavowed of that opinion, but if that's the case, then he's coming in from a very personal aspect, and we're here to represent the people of Thetford, not to promote our own agendas.
Thank you very much. Councillor Harvey.
Yeah, yet again I'm going to take Councillor Taylor to task. I have some very good friends in New Zealand and Australia. It's only to take one point of view. The people I speak to on a regular basis have full support of their government's actions.
Thank you very much. Any other councillors that wish to speak? Councillor Taylor, I suppose it's too much to hope you might be withdrawing the claim you meant that Councillor Robinson referred to.
I do have some evidence of potential corruption, and it is now going to another level of investigation at Bretland Council, and more on that at the next meeting.
We look forward to hearing your evidence of potential that adjective slipped in between the two conversations as if it had changed suddenly. Councillor Robinson, please. So I think we've heard it now. Thank you very much.
Interest on money. The money that I was going to put in to help buy that boat as a consortium would have been for the people of Thetford. We did not expect the local councillors to be involved with wasting taxpayers' money over 30,000.
You've told us that before, Councillor. You haven't changed anything by repeating it. Councillor Robinson, please.
Thank you. Well, I think that's an interesting nuance on the English language. As you probably worked out, I'm not the best relation to English language when I speak it. But we've moved from corruption to potential.
Indeed.
Smoke. And again, I find it rather offensive. Councillor Taylor sits around this table with all of us. He's broken bread.
I think he's potentially a dick.
And yet, there's allegations, potentially, of corruption. I would like to see that retracted, because it is unwarranted.
I think Councillor Taylor's had the opportunity to withdraw the remark, and he qualified it by putting in the essential qualifying word which you've referred to quite rightly. I would be fascinated to know whether during the course of this meeting any councillor has felt as a result of it that they are more convinced that Councillor Taylor is right, but I have just a slight feeling that may not be the case. I think we're now ready to move on from questions unless any other members of the public have any questions, and they have indicated that they've not. So I'd like to move on, colleagues. Thank you very much for that, and I also would like to say welcome to the February meeting of Thetford Town Council, and a particular welcome, if I may, to our new councillor, Councillor Susie Dowling, who is now sitting in the beginner's chair, which I must admit having occupied for a considerable length of time some years ago, so I hope you won't have to sit there for 3 years as I did. But anyway, well done for getting elected.
Thank you.
Item 6769, declarations of any disclosable pecuniary interests. Are there any such declarations, please? If not, make them when you get to them. Thank you. Item 770, apologies for absence. Are there any apologies, please, Chris?
No, we are a full council.
Thank you very much indeed. 771, we move now to the minutes of the last meeting. That was the minutes of the 25th of January, to confirm those if we possibly can. Are there any comments or changes, colleagues, that you wish to make? If not, can I invite you to agree those minutes so that it can be signed as a true record of our last meeting? Okay, I think semi-silence means assent in this case. Thank you very much, everyone. That was item 771. Now on to item 772. Nominations for mayoral year 2022-23. To receive nominations for the next mayoral year, and we're invited to vote on the nominations to appoint a mayor-elect. Yes, please, Councillor Harvey.
Can I nominate Councillor James, please?
Thank you very much. Is there any seconder?
Can I second that?
Thank you very much indeed. Are there any other proposals, please? Councillor Taylor.
I would like to nominate myself, Chair.
You will need a proposer, Councillor.
Seconder.
And if you find a proposer, you will need a seconder. Does anyone wish to propose Councillor Taylor? Thank you, Councillor Taylor, for your offer to help. As we've only had one nominated, proposed and seconded candidate, can I invite you colleagues to agree with that choice? Thank you very much indeed, that's excellent. And I think, apart from my right now to congratulate Councillor James, who will do an excellent job, I have no doubt, but also to say how pleased I am that we are now clearly into the agreement that we had before, but which we sometimes struggled with, which is that the Deputy Mayor of 1 year should become the Mayor of the next year. And that does put us, of course, on some with some opportunity to move to the next item, which is to elect a Deputy Mayor elect. Are there any nominations for that post, please? Councillor Harvey.
Can I nominate Councillor Wright, please?
Councillor Wright has been nominated. Any second for that, please? Councillor Jeremy. Thank you very much. Are there any other proposals, please? Councillor Taylor.
I'd like to propose myself for deputy, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Councillor Taylor. Do you have someone you may not propose yourself, you may suggest it and hope that someone else will propose you. Is there a councillor who wishes to propose Councillor Taylor? I don't think there is. In which case, unless there's any other suggestions, can I invite you colleagues to agree to the nomination of Councillor Stuart Wright as our Deputy Mayor? Thank you very much, that's splendid. Thank you very much for that, colleagues. Congratulations to Councillor Wright.
Thank you all.
We go on to committee minutes now, starting at item 773. And we start with the Amenities Committee of the 2nd of February. Could the Chairman please give us his helpful for taking us forward?
Thank you very much, Mr. Mayor. I'd like to present the Amenities Committee minutes held on Thursday, the 2nd of February. It's all resolved business. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Any comments, colleagues, or can you I ask you to support that proposal?
Yes.
I think we're agreed to it. Thank you very much indeed. And next, then, on to the Heritage and Town Events Committee of the following day. Can we have a proposal, please?
Certainly, Mr. Mayor, if I may.
Please.
As Chair, I beg leave to present the unconfirmed minutes of the Heritage and Town Events Committee meeting held on the 3rd of February. There are 2 pages and I believe there are no recommendations. But if I may, could I draw your attention, fellow councillors, to the outline events ready for Jubilee weekend. Move the minutes.
Thank you very much. Are the minutes accepted, colleagues? Thank you very much indeed. And we're going to go on to, this is the point in the meeting when I'm usually shuffling papers, not always successfully. I'm hoping it's the meeting of the Personnel Committee next. In which case, can I invite the Chair of Personnel, please?
Yes, thank you. I'm pleased to recommend the Personnel Committee meeting of the 8th of the 2nd, 2022. And because it's not coming up on here, and my eyes are kind of a bit funny with that screen.
There's no recommendation.
So there's no recommendations. So who's passed the minutes?
Right, thank you. Are the minutes of the Personnel Committee acceptable, colleagues?
Agreed.
Thank you very much indeed. And so on to planning. Can we have a proposal concerning the Planning Committee of the 8th of February, please?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Present the minutes of the Planning Committee meeting on Tuesday, 8th of February. I thank Councillor James for standing in as Vice Chair to chair the meeting, and it is all resolved business. So I move the minutes.
Happy to accept that proposal? Yes, we are. Thank you very much indeed. And so on to venues and communications, please.
Busy man.
Get there in a minute.
I'm grateful because it gives me time to catch up as well, although I'm on the paper version.
Takes a while to open
That might be a bit quicker.
up. Mr. Mayor, present the minutes of the venues and communications meeting for February. I think it is all resolved business. Yes, page 1, 2 and 3. I move the minutes. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Everyone happy to agree with those minutes? Yes, this is the moment when you're just nodding every 2 or 3 minutes, colleagues. Please help us. We'll get to it eventually, and we move on to the allotment committee of the 10th, please.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'd like to present the minutes of the allotment committee meeting held on 10th of February 2022. There's no recommendations, and there is 2 pages. Pass minutes.
Thank you very much. Are those minutes acceptable, colleagues?
Agreed.
Right, thank you very much indeed. So on to the cemetery committee next, please.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'm pleased to present the minutes of the cemetery committee of the 10th of the 2nd, 2022.
Thank you.
The minutes, please.
Once again, are you happy with those minutes? Yes, you are. Good, thank you very much indeed. And finally, the finance committee of the 15th.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. So I'm delighted to present the unconfirmed minutes of that meeting for the Finance Committee. There is one recommendation which can be found on page 1 under item number 75921, which is the approval of payments. The recommendation is that Thetford Town Council approve the making of the payments A to E in the supporting papers that were distributed with the agenda.
Agreed.
Agree?
Thank you very much.
Recommendation?
Yes,
You guys need to do that.
They're well trained now. Could I say that when we come to the next item, you won't need to agree? Oh, you spoilt it, Brenda.
No, I'm just going to say I propose we accept it.
That's very kind of you, thank you. Your proposal is gratefully accepted. Everybody else has nodded, so we'll move on.
Super. The rest is resolved business. Beg leave to move the minutes, please, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you very much indeed. Okay. So on to item 774. You have a page or so of information on that. As far as I'm concerned, that probably is enough, unless there are any comments or questions on item 774. There is.
What was your favourite ride at the King's Lynn Mark, Mr. Mayor?
The bumper cars.
Sadly, although I was told by previous mayors this was one of the highlights of the year, as we were walking through King's Lynn, the mayoress was taken unwell and had to be assisted by several members of the King's Lynn staff who were excellent, and by the staff of the Duke's Head Hotel who were also excellent. But it did mean that she didn't feel she could take part in something that went round and round and round, or up and down and up and down, or indeed banging into other mayors. We enjoyed watching other mayors smashing each other up on the dolphins, whatever they're called. And I much regret we weren't able to take part. So thank you for that leading question, and I'm sorry that we missed out, and we look forward to you having a better opportunity next year.
I hope the mayoress is feeling better.
The mayoress is feeling better, thank you, yes. So I think that's probably, no one else is anxious to speak on that subject, so we move on to the next item, which is 776, reports from county and district councillors.
I'm sorry, Mr. Mayor, you've just missed out one.
I've just missed out reports from...
You're so excited about the Dodgems, we've missed out about the
I tried to avoid 775, colleagues. I'm struggling with counting up that far. Town council representatives on other bodies to receive and note any reports. Are there colleagues who would like to make comments about other bodies on which they sit? There must be. There usually are. I'm looking accusingly at you now. Any volunteer councillors who wish to make such comments? Goodness, you could be home before breakfast. Right, I think you've had long enough, so I will get... Oh, I got one now. Councillor Robinson, please.
I'm not on the outside bodies for the town council, but I would like us to review the outside bodies that we actually engage with to ensure they're still current and reflect our community in the 21st century.
It would be an option, wouldn't it, to put that as an agenda item for another time? Is that something you would take forward, what you're proposing?
It would have to be in the April one, because that's they're decided for making,
that
so that's an
sense.
annual review for it. If we put it on in April.
Are you happy with that? Councillor James, please.
Thank you. So I am one of the council's representatives on Safer Thetford Action Group, and it's really a call to arms, as it were, which will obviously be right up Councillor Taylor's street for positive action. The team at Stag are very, very keen to get greater community engagement, and I come to this council as representatives of our community to reach out to members of our community that may feel that they would benefit from getting involved. And I know certainly the River Group have found it a productive process to engage with Stag within the closed meetings as well as in the open meetings. But this is a call to arms, residents associations, that kind of thing. We need to get that representation within that body, please. Thank you.
Thank you. Yes, please, Councillor Brame.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. As a representative for the Greater Thetford something or other. Oh, Action. No, it's not Action. No, it's the Greater Thetford Partnership. I would very much like to take the opportunity on congratulating Councillor Jeremy as he stood in and chaired the committee for the benefit of Thetford and what's going to happen. He did a very, very sterling job. Unfortunately, I've got no idea what the rest of the committee was doing. Nothing's happened. Nothing's likely to happen. But he did a sterling job in chairing it. So thank you for that.
That may be a hard act to follow, but is there any other councillor who'd like to have a go, please?
It's from me,
Councillor Wright.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I might ask a question to those on the Great Thetford Partnership, whether there is any further news on the closure of Nuns Bridges and when the electrical work. I did raise this when I was a substitute member, and we were told that some information would be forthcoming at some point, but obviously
there is an opportunity here on my right.
I have received an email today from Breckland asking me to set up a meeting with the representatives of Pigeon in order to be briefed as to what's going to happen. So I have asked them to send me the dates, and they're coming to the council to discuss that whenever they send me the date for the meeting. So that came in today. So obviously it's kind of, I'm assuming it must be coming down the tracks.
The pipeline.
The pipeline, very good. That's two tonight.
Again, Mr. Mayor, if I can help a little bit on that, because we at the Great Thetford, it was noted that Breckland are no longer involved with the electricity deal. Pigeon and the developers have now decided where it was going to be Breckland and English Homes were going to put the money up, and then there was a very convoluted way of how that was going to be charged back to people who actually got the electricity. It appears now that Pigeon and their representatives have worked out that there is a penny to be made, so they're now going to provide the money rather than English Homes. So basically the whole thing is starting again. The planning permissions and everything for the cable movement, is still currently going to come in exactly the same way, because basically it's the only way to come in. But as to a starting time and things, that could all change, because it's going to be more dependent on when the developers want to do it. Hopefully sooner rather than later, but hopefully that's what Pigeon are going to tell the town clerk. But that's where we are at the moment. We're stuck in that horrible position of nobody, you know, because it's changed hands, it's starting again.
Mr. Mayor.
Yes, please.
I don't know if this is, you'll probably shoot me down for this one, but I have two problems right now. One, I can't open up any of my information on these laptop things. It just says you cannot open it this time, so I can't use my laptop here. And the second point is, I can't read that, so I very much doubt the public can read it. And I'd like just to bring that to the attention of the council.
If it would help you at all, Councillor, I can assure you that I can't read it either.
The members of the public have got paper copies.
Yeah, well,
can I have a copy?
I'm glad that the members of the public have got photocopies, Dennis, was the comment, and that's obviously helpful as well. It
That's
doesn't
just the agenda, it's not the actual body.
It doesn't help you personally.
No,
I accept that. I think your complaint is frustrating for you, but there's nothing that I personally can do to help you at the moment other than allow Councillor Robinson to speak if you were going to. Did you? No.
Sorry.
I think, thank you. I don't think we can resolve Councillor Cooper's IT issues tonight, and I'll be the wrong person to even attempt. But what I think Councillor Brown's preempted me by lending him his iPad. So that issue's now resolved.
Thank you.
Any more comments, please, under item 775? I think the answer is no, so can we move on to 776, which I attempted to get to earlier and was rebuffed. It's reports from county and district councillors. Are there county and district councillors who wish to make some comments, please? It does, Councillor Jeremy. Are you on the list?
They're just being terribly polite to each other.
Thank you. Normally, when I print something, it automatically prints double-sided, even though I don't like it doing that without me telling it. But this month, it's printed 2 pages, so I pass these round. So I'm afraid there's two pages to my report, but take 2 pages and pass it along just so you can all keep a copy. But I'm trying to save a tree, so I didn't print it again. But
send it by email and you'll save a tree.
well, I could do, but then you wouldn't be able to open it, would you? So. Anyway, I've got a couple of things I wanted to mention. First of all, yes, I was at the Greater Thetford Partnership, and I'm always slightly nervous when Roy gives me praise, suggesting Councillor Taylor will have a go at me more. But thank you very much. I was pleased to chair the meeting. I do share some of Roy's frustrations about progress, but with these things, it feels like jam tomorrow all the time. And you know, I'm an optimistic person, and I hope that eventually we will see the fruits of our labour with things like the Greater Thetford Partnership. We've got to work in partnership with other councils, other bodies. It's the only way we'll get anything done, but it is frustrating how slow it moves sometimes.
Youth is on your side.
Thank you. So there's a couple of things. Normally at this time of year, it's the same old process, full council's budget setting meetings. We had Norfolk County Council budget meeting yesterday, and I was very pleased to have the opportunity to second an amendment to the budget. It wasn't approved, but I was pleased to second it nonetheless. And on Thursday, it's Brackland's full council meeting when they will be setting the budget. One thing of note in the Brackland budget papers for Thursday is the proposal is to continue the Hardship Fund to support people with their council tax if they're struggling. That fund is live this current financial year and is obviously being accessed. But that's going to be topped up again from the 1st of April. So if you are aware of anybody, it's called the Hardship Fund, and it's specifically available for council tax, not for other things, specifically for council tax. And I think that's really important because I think we all acknowledge that council tax has been going up for whatever reason, and but you know, it is more unaffordable for people, and that hardship fund for me is absolutely crucial to support people. On the 10th of February, myself and Councillor Harvey managed to meet the team developing Elm House on Elm Road. That's the former, well, depends how old you are, but it was the social services depot. For me, it was preschool at Elm Road, bought by Brackland from Norfolk County Council, and it's being turned into emergency accommodation which will support up to 35 individuals or families. I think it's really important that we acknowledge that some of the rooms there, some of the space there actually is multiple rooms, so actually people with families, which is really important because there's so few other alternatives to support people, you know, that find themselves homeless if they have a family. That's coming on really nicely. It's going to be run by Access Community Trust, who I think some of you are aware. They are very keen to work with the community, and they stressed that to Chris and I, and we were meeting them with Barnum Residents Group and the local church and others. So if you want more information or want to be involved, want to go and have a look, walk around the facility, anything like that, let them know. They're very accommodating, and you know, they want to see people and they want to be involved. Which is really encouraging. The other thing I'd highlight is something that's happening in March, which is Spring Clean at St John's Way. Those of you that know St John's know it's won awards in the 60s for design when not so many people had cars, frankly, is the best way to describe it. So when Brackland send or flagships send the road sweep around, it is virtually impossible to sweep the roads in that area because it's so congested with so many cars. And that's why I always get complaints from people complaining about, you know, gullies being blocked, drains being blocked, that sort of thing. So we're going to give something a go, which is we are going to write to every resident of St John's Way and say on the 14th and the 15th, please do not park your car on St John's Way. And Brackland and Flagship are going to send a team down each, the Glutton and other pieces of kit and you know, people, frankly, and clean as much of that area on those 2 days as they possibly can. I'm not sure what the buy-in will be from the community, but as I say, I'm an optimist, and I'm hoping lots of people will, you know, choose to go out for the day or go to work or do whatever. That's why we've chosen sort of daytime hours. So we can have a really good go at giving it a clean. I mean, it's not rocket science. I mean, if you go to America, there's a certain day where you have to park your car on one side so they can clean the street. But that's not quite how we do stuff in this country. But those 2 days, with the spring clean, and then so the Saturday before, we are holding our March community litter pick and focusing on St John's. And there's a local church actually on the Sunday the 13th who they undertake a community event every so often, and they will be litter picking St John's on the Sunday, and we're hoping to get the school involved and the Meetup Cafe and others, and obviously local residents as well. I'm going to be taking something to amenities next week as well to ask maybe the town council would like to get involved and help clean our play area and street furniture and that sort of thing. Clark will tell me they're all busy.
No, we have actually received the requesting directly about the spring clean.
Brilliant.
We've also engaged BFER, who are going to go out and ask if their volunteers will come and be part of our day as well. So
Brilliant.
I knew you'd ask me.
Oh,
so.
You see, I got around to it eventually. So that's all going ahead. So yeah, if anyone wants to be involved in that, please do. It coincides with Keep Britain Tidy's national spring clean that they do every year, which is why we're doing it in March. But yeah, that's all there. Happy to take any questions.
Councillor Taylor, are you wanting to ask Councillor Jeremy a question? No, probably not. Okay. Are you wanting to ask a question? Would you like to do that while Councillor Taylor makes up his mind?
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Mayor. Terry, as you're the Norfolk County Council as well, and you're doing St John's, can you do something about the St John's main road going round? Because the way the buses work now, you have to do a tour of the town before you actually get home. And that road is absolutely terrible. How them old people put up with all the bumps and everything. The road is diabolical. I've never been on such a road in my life, you know. It really needs to be done and done properly, not just doing little potholes that raise up off the ground so when the bus goes round it shakes it. I know our buses are not very good on suspensions, but you know, this is ridiculous. It's worse than the bumper cars, I'll say that much.
Councillor Taylor, do you want to ask Councillor Jeremy a question? Yes, please do then.
thought something changed in the agenda, sorry. I know what you like to trip me up, you see, Mr. Chairman. No, just, I was wondering that seeing as Councillor Jeremy voted for the rise in the council tax, will you be putting in anything to that fund from your council wages in lieu of that?
I resisted the urge to respond to you earlier because frankly I don't see the point. So on Monday, yesterday, at Norfolk County Council, I voted against the budget partly because of council tax and the affordability, and because Norfolk doesn't have the same support available to support people with council tax. It's as simple as that. At Brackland, they have the Hardship Fund. Ordinarily, as an opposition member, I vote against the budget at Brackland. The last couple of years, I have voted for it, specifically because of the Hardship Fund. Here we are at the end of February, and there is still money in that Hardship Fund for council tax. So if you're aware of residents that need support, it is there. Trust me. If you can't get them to access it and can't work your way through the system, or they can't, let me know and I will happily have the conversations with people. But the support is there. Once I'm on my feet, yes, I did vote to... no, actually, I didn't. I'll tell a lie. The vote. We as a council don't get a say, councillors didn't get a say on the vote. It's a cabinet decision, it's an executive decision, but we were asked our opinion as Brackland councillors from Thetford, and I did support the vote going, and I still support the vote going. I think it's a good thing. And you made an interesting point earlier about democracy being sort of power to the people, representing the people. Absolutely. And come next May, when there's an election mark, you can put it on a leaflet that I voted to take the vote out, and I'm quite happy with that. And my record will stand next May, and maybe you'll get elected, and maybe I will. But I'm very proud of my record and the things that I support as a councillor.
Thank you. And have you completed your reports from the council now? So I'm going to go backwards in the alphabet from Councillor Jeremy to Councillor James, please.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. So picking up on Brackland District Council, just to give you a bit of background, I'm actually on the Governance and Audit Committee, which will come as no surprise to most of you because I seem to like numbers. That oversees effective governance, risk management, internal controls and financial reporting. And our most recent meeting was held on Thursday, the 10th of February. As Councillor Jeremy has correctly said, full council is to be held on Thursday, where items on the agenda include changes to the local council tax reduction scheme for 2022-23, which proposes reducing the capital threshold from 16,000 to 10,000 and increasing the tolerance for universal credit data reassessments from £65 per month to £100 per month. Both of these proposed measures seek to ensure support is focused on those residents who need it most, and simplify the scheme by reducing the burden on both customer and evidence requirements, whilst improving financial certainty to enable those residents to manage their payments and household budgets. Finances remain the focus for this meeting, with reviews being held at the pay policy statement for the coming year and also the Q3 financial performance report for the current year. Finally, again, will be the budget setting for 2023, along with the medium-term financial plan and capital strategy and council tax precept setting. In relation to Norfolk County Councillors, Councillor Jeremy correctly said, yesterday saw the annual budget setting meeting where the County Council agreed to their precept. For the 2022-23 financial year, this has been set at 2.99%. It should be noted that the Council could have raised it as much as 3.99%, but it was strongly felt by the Conservative administration that there should not be too much additional strain on the households of Norfolk when other factors such as the rapid rise to the cost of living are affecting our residents. And it's interesting to actually note that no opposition party made any reference in their proposals to change that level of the precept. It was effectively just moving money around in pots. The overall net budget has increased by £25 million, and this budget represents significant investment whilst addressing continuing severe pressures on services, and is a key component in the Council's commitment to build back better in the wake of the pandemic, along with increasing spending on its key service areas and capital programme. Happy to take any questions, Mr. Mayor.
Are there any questions to Councillor James? Councillor Taylor, please.
I don't know if she can answer this one, but I noticed all the signs that are being put up. I don't know if it's by Brackland or by county, all around the town and other areas have got the European Union flag still on them. I'm just wondering if there's money in that European budget that the councils have still got access to spend, and if we have, can we put that into these hardship funds rather than banners around the town with European flags on them. I'm just wondering if we could do that. Is there a possibility? I've better spending the money. If the money is there, or are we wasting money on these things that doesn't exist? You all know I'm stupid.
I will not comment on your last comment, Councillor Taylor, because I feel that would be unfair. But in terms of replacing things that just have a European flag on them, I would consider that a waste of taxpayers' money at this stage, which I know you're incredibly passionate about saving.
Mr. Chairman.
I will continue.
Yes, please.
If I may. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. In terms of signage, I'm concerned which signs you mean, because there's a lot of stuff going on in and around Thetford and there are considerable works happening. So if you could be more specific in which signage you're referring to, I'd be grateful.
Councillor Taylor.
I think it's my accent. I didn't ask for more money to be spent. I'll say this slowly. There's things going up already with those signs on. I anticipate that's because potentially there's still money in the budget from the European side to do that. If there is money in that budget from the European side, can we send it sideways to the likes of the Hardship Fund that Councillor Jeremy was going on? If there's not money there sitting in a European money left over and we are spending that out of a budget, can we cease from doing that from now on? That is what I'm trying to find out. It may be my accent that causing the problem.
Your accent is fine, Councillor Taylor. I do not know which signs you are referring to.
Is the money being spent on European signage? And if there is it from a fund or is it not from a fund, or is there not been money being spent? If you don't know, just please say I'll find out.
What European signage?
I can't say this in German if it makes it easier for you.
Councillor Taylor, I think getting to the point of being rude is not helpful. You were asked twice to say which signs you're talking about and you've not done so. Would you like to tell us where these signs are? Otherwise it rather destroys the point you're attempting to make.
The signs are in the town. They're on various lampposts, and if you go and have a look you will see them.
Are you referring to the Explore, Discover, Enjoy signage via Breckland Council? Yes or no answer will suffice.
I don't know. I thought you'd been in charge of finance, you may know.
If they are Breckland Council signs, I am not in charge of finance there. As much as I'd quite like to be, I'm not.
I think in the absence of any definition of signs that enables us to pinpoint a specific complaint, we'd better call that off and move on to other councillors who wish to speak, unless you've got more to say, and I assumed rightly that you hadn't. Are there any other councillors who wish to report, please? Councillor Robinson, please.
Thank you. It should be nice and brief. Just one of the things I want to highlight is it affects at least 50% of residents within the district on March the 21st. The bin collection days are changing, and this will affect, as I said before, 50% of our residents. And I would hope maybe it's something we can promote via our website actually, because it has a direct impact. I know leaflets and letters started going out from the 14th of February, and they should be with all residents by the 11th of March. The reason behind it is to make the routes more economical and environmentally friendly. That's an important thing for residents. The other thing I'm going to highlight is the COVID walk-in buses at the Charles Burrell Centre this week on the 24th from 1 PM to 6 PM for those that want to go and get their jabs. And finally, as part of its Inspiring Communities programme, Breckland and Breckland Youth Advisory Board commissioned capital T Wellness and Therapy Services, and they are delivering support for young people who are on mental health waiting lists and their families. And that's a really worthwhile project. It's going to be supporting up to 50 young people. I'll conclude there. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Councillor Brame, please. Sorry, were you wishing to ask a question of what Councillor Robinson said?
unless we can move on with the agenda, I think that's what we're still on. Yeah?
Councillor Taylor, did you want to ask Councillor Robinson a question? Could I have a yes or a no, please? Do you want to ask Councillor Robinson a question?
Yeah.
Well, thank you. It would perhaps have been helpful to say so. Please ask your question.
When I put my hand up, I was going to the toilet. My apologies.
Thank you for your humour, which is always welcome and confirms the location we suspect you might have come from. Just trying to make the point, this is the way we handle a meeting. You may not like it, but if you were to be elected, may you be able to do it your own way. So my intention is to ensure that someone who comes in and jumps, as it were, into the fray when it's not his turn, is doing so because he wants to ask a question of the person who last spoke. You've now established with me that that's the case, therefore it's now your turn.
There's an old phrase comes to mind, I won't swear it. It's a statement of the obvious, Mr. Chairman.
It's not obvious to me, Mr. Councillor. I'm so sorry not to be on your wavelength.
No, I just want to ask you a question of Councillor Robinson, because he's talking about the jab bus. I take it he wasn't aware of what was presented potentially by the public at the last meeting. And as he's pushing the jab bus, I'd just like, if he hasn't got that information, I can get it to him after this meeting over the next couple of days.
That's a very kind
offer.
offer.
That was the Pfizer information and the information of the other document that was given out.
Thank you very much. Councillor Robinson, please.
Thank you. Yes, at the last meeting we were all presented with a 38-page document which I've taken the time to read. Fortunately, the reason we're in this position is because we make our minds up on the evidence as we see it. I firmly support the vaccination programme, and that's where I end that comment. I firmly encourage residents to get themselves vaccinated, do the best thing for their community and protect each other.
Thank you very much. Are you going to ask a question or make a statement?
Question.
Please try and ask a question.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Did you read the 38-page document?
You just said it.
Okay, I realise I have an Essex accent, so I'm pretty sure I got lost talking to a person from Liverpool.
Yes.
I did say I did,
Yes.
and then I formed an opinion, and I'm fully aware that Councillor Taylor, you have a certain set of beliefs around the vaccination and COVID, and I respect your opinion. But I also have that right to form. I have my own right to form my own opinion, and I firmly sit behind supporting my community as I see it in the best possible way, and that is encouraging members of the public and residents to get the vaccine.
Agreed.
Thank you very much. Did you wish to say anything else, Councillor Robinson, in the way of a report?
It's not often you want to hear more from me, Mr. Mayor, so I can sit down on my head.
Are there any other county or district councillors who wish to speak? Councillor Harvey, please. Councillor.
Yeah, tying on from what Mark said, I think we should give our thanks to the refuse collectors on Friday who worked through really adverse conditions to get the beans done. You know, I mean, But while we're on Serco, I'm part of the Cast and Finish group, which is meeting to discuss Serco's performance. If any resident or member has any questions they want to ask, if they just probably, I will ask the questions.
Thank you very much. Are there any other district and county councillors, please? Yes, Councillor Brame.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. A couple of things that I would really like to mention. Firstly, I'd like to express my thanks to Bretland, who invited the two recipients from the Queen's Honours List this year to come to Bretland and receive a small vote of thanks.
Two Thetford recipients.
Two Thetford recipients, which is why I'm bringing it up here, because I always feel that the county and the district things tend to get a little bit lost in what's happening in the far bigger places, and they go on about what's happening in Norfolk. Well, that's very nice, but I try to bring it back to Thetford, and they did actually do this for the two recipients in Thetford, they were part of other people from Breckland that were there, and we unveiled a new portrait print signed from the Queen, and Lady Danette, the Lord Lieutenant of Norfolk, was there and had a good time to speak to everybody that had been given something, and it was very, very nice. Secondly, the other thing I would like to say is that as chairman this year, I have got a fundraising day coming up on the 31st of March. It's in aid of Scotty's Little Soldiers, which is a charity that tries to help the children of armed forces personnel who are killed in action. It can be quite devastating. It is quite devastating to lose a parent, and then you can suddenly find that the way the big world works and the army works, you also lose your house, and mum or dad, depending on, can find themselves in an awful lot of distress, and of course this is then passed down to the children. So this charity has set up to look after these children, and they have helped several thousand children in the last few years. So it is something that I thought I would like to get behind, which is also part of Breckland wanting to support the armed forces, and they are going for the gold standard of support to the armed forces. So again, the reason I bring it up here is that part of the fundraiser is going to be a golf day, and if anybody within the council, staff or within members actually play, we're trying to put together some teams. It will be a fun day. You will get all of the coffee and food and everything else, and if we could hopefully put some teams together against different councils, so that one of the lovely things that has happened to me and as has happened to the mayor and will happen to the future mayor is that you go out and you meet people on civic occasions, and you're all in the same boat. You all have a same belief that you want to try and do something, and I'm just trying to put this down to a fun day, so anybody that plays golf, and they'll play with somebody that has similar sort of ideas. So that's there for anybody that wants to get in touch. If they get in touch with Chairman at Breckland, we can sort out teams. And the only other statement I would like to make is that I didn't really believe I would ever do this, but I did hear Councillor Taylor say that he knows he's stupid. I would like to second that, and I'm quite prepared to propose it and put it to the vote if you wish.
Thank you.
And I'd like to know, can I nominate Chris Crimmen as the staff
Yeah.
staff representative for the council? If anybody can win a golf competition, it's Chris. So my money's on him.
Thank you. You can sponsor me if you wish.
I think there are one or two hands up. I'll take Councillor Carnegie first, please.
Was that a county councillor that put his hand up, or Breckland councillor? No? Oh, you said somebody, you had one or two hands up. I just
I'm hoping that you're going to ask a question of the last person who spoke, because you're not.
No, I don't. I'm not a county councillor, and I'm not a Breckland councillor. But what I would like to be heard here tonight is that we do have councillors that sometimes go beyond their duties, and there is one in this room this evening. A person had a problem getting to the hospital because it was Addenbrooke's, and if you try to get to Addenbrooke's early in the morning, the taxis will not take you. Knowing that you're not coming home, you go by taxi because you can't leave your car there. So this person had to get there by 7:15 in the morning. This councillor picked him up at 5:30 after chasing around everywhere to try and get somebody to take. This councillor turned up at 5:30 in the morning and took him to the hospital. And I think that is going beyond what a councillor is. So Personally, I thank you.
Brenda, I can only say thank you very much. It was a great pleasure to help a fellow councillor. We're all in this together, and it was something that I could actually find the time to do. I must admit, 5:30 in the morning was great. I didn't realise they were 2 in a day, and it took me about a week to get over it. But it is something that I would like to try and see from Thetford Town Council, that we can now start to try and pursue something on these lines, because I didn't realise until it happened to one of ours that it is that difficult to get to Addenbrooks at that time in the morning. I can understand the taxis not wanting to do it because it's, you know, they have school runs and various other bits and pieces, but I think it's something that we as a council could look at to see if volunteers or whatever, that we could set up something to look at these people, because guess what? You don't go to Addenbrooks for nothing. You know, when they get you in there, they're going to do something that really needs to be done. And I think we're going to find over the next few months, as the hospitals start to come out of what they've been in and start to open up to the general public, and to start the backlog and getting rid of the backlogs, we're going to get a lot of this. And this town, you know, really needs something. And I'm quite prepared to put my name forward and try and do something as far as the council is concerned, and see if we can sort something out with some volunteers.
I do think there is actually a charity, isn't there, that does that locally, does hospital collection. I'm fairly certain there is one. I'll look into it. I'm sure there is one in Brecon.
The Royal Voluntary Service.
Yes, I think they. Yeah.
Yeah. I think they were.
Yeah, just to say, it was because of the hour of the morning. You know, yeah, they will take you to hospital and bring you back, but it's that hour in the morning, they don't want to do that one. I think that's the problem. And the
thank you for raising the point. That's very helpful, thank you. I think we've got Councillor Robinson next, please, then Councillor Barretto, then Councillor Taylor.
Nice and brief. Congratulations, Roy, on the Good Samaritan. But on to more serious business. You mentioned your charity golf event. Is it Crazy Golf? Because I think you might get more takers. But for those of us who do not play golf, I'd hope you share a link so we actually will be able to make a contribution to a worthy cause. Yeah. So maybe you could forward that, and perhaps we can support Roy again in publicising that.
Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Barretto, please.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Actually, Councillor Robinson just kind of stole my words, basically. I was going to say, whilst the cause is great and I fully support it, I never played golf in my life. I would be of no help to you at all. I'd probably be the demise of the whole Thetford team. But I'm happy to make a small contribution, actually, for today. The other point I was going to say was regarding going to Addenbrooks. It can be complicated. I'll be there tomorrow with my daughter to start the trial treatments. So it's going to be a bit of a stage, and travelling from here to Addenbrooks, being that the closest area that they treat children for a condition, is going to be a bit of a challenge. So I know that going early in the morning can be tough, and it's always good to have people helping each other and always supporting each other, whether it's your fellow councillors, your neighbours, whatever it is, because people can get stuck sometimes with the distance, especially in this area which is quite rural. And I just want to make a remark, going back backwards a little bit into the Hardship Fund and the conditions of families are struggling. I have now started volunteering, donating my time at the Citizens Advice Bureau at CB again. This sort of kind of matches up a little bit with me, valuing my legal background. The one thing that they still have and they're still helping families with is with the food vouchers and the fuel vouchers as well, towards people that are struggling, whether it's for food or for keeping their houses warm, because obviously with the bill and the energy bills going up, that has been a big deal for a lot of families. They're just borderline with getting the month to go to the end of the month, getting the money to go to the end of the month, and sometimes that's not enough, and they end up without heating on the house or without groceries, whatever it may be. So they are still taking referrals, they are still helping families. They are quite overloaded. We are looking for more volunteers, and I'm there now, but we are looking for more volunteers, particularly people with different skills, whether they may be languages, they may be financial, whatever extra skills that people can donate a few hours a week, that'd be brilliant. They are a lovely team to work with, and they see a lot of people per week. So any help, and if you are any volunteers or any families that need that support, the support is there for whoever needs it. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Councillor Taylor.
Yeah, I must comment on the remarks made by Councillor Brave about my competency. I'd just like to say I'm presently in the middle of presenting new paperwork to Breckland Council. And once that goes through, the two things I'd like to say is I look forward to a dish served cold, and future will prove past. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I don't think there are any other councillors who wish to speak so far as I can recall. So that being the case, I think we can move on to item 777, which is responses from county and district councillors to written questions from Thetford Town councillors. I have to ask first if there are any written questions.
No, none received.
There are no written questions. That deals with that item very neatly and quickly. So we're on to item 778. Marketplace consultation, to receive the results of the market consultation and to decide on the future use of the marketplace. Councillor Wright, please.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Hopefully councillors have received and read the document that was circulated as for the agenda tonight. The results of the consultation are pretty much self-evident. It was a small sample size, as was the first consultation. I think we lead it all through to the conclusion that the three options that we have to retain the car park as it is, with some restrictions, because I think quite clearly we all recognise the way it's being used at the moment is not something we can go forward with rogue parking, shall we call it, and damage to our street furniture happening on a regular occasion. And we do need to think about, if we do retain it as a car park, in terms of the churn that those spaces offer, rather than it being full up all day for visitors. And if we are looking to create a churn there, we will need to police it, and policing will come at some cost. At the moment we do nothing, but we will need to look into that further and how we do it. The second option there was the marketplace be closed as a car park, create a pedestrian space, outlining the information provided. Whilst we put this document together for the consultation, we couldn't categorically say what we could deliver because it's all dependent upon funding. There are ideas and noises that have been made from various sources that what could be done. But until a decision to close the car park and look into those various options, I don't think we can say categorically what we would like we could do there. But in the short term, I think I highlighted on an earlier paper that we discussed a few months back now, the short term things of having outdoor seating for the Guildhall tea room. We've got a new tenant in the Shambles who I know is looking to offer outdoor space there. There's a couple of other tenants in the marketplace area who would look to be using that area. And I think we do recognise with the steps the Guildhall has improved its appearance, and we are looking to deliver weddings in the Guildhall. So we do need to try and facilitate those events that are happening in the Guildhall. And if we've got the marketplace there, whatever we decide tonight, we do need to try and make the most of the Guildhall steps and the facility that we have there. And then the third option there was the marketplace become a pedestrian area closest to the Guildhall, but providing some kind of disabled parking nearest the War Memorial, because I think we all recognise that there is a need for disabled parking in the area. There is disabled parking in Wells Street and also in Guildhall Street, and there is still some outside the Cottage Hospital, but I think we do need to probably look into the reconfiguration of those parking spaces around the central area and just make sure that we do facilitate that. So I'm happy to take any questions. I'm taking this as lead mainly because it came through venues and communications and I chaired the working group which we put the consultation together. I think the points that to be made, I'm sure that you all got your own viewpoints, would like to make some points in regard to that, but I think we're at this juncture now where we do need to make a decision. Whatever decision we make will then lead into further work being needed to hone down on the way forward on this. But I'm happy to take any questions, but otherwise just throw it to the floor.
Thank you very much indeed. Yes, I'm happy to take questions to Councillor Wright or comments following what Councillor Wright has said, if you wish, colleagues. Starting with you, please, Councillor.
Me? Cheers, thank you. I've been looking at the consultation, everything through, and I'm personally of the opinion that we should go for the option that has the disabled drivers there, but the rest of it is used as an open public space. That's my opinion.
Thank you. Councillor Taylor, followed by Councillor Brain.
Just looking at this, I've had a few spare hours over the last 2 weeks, and what I've been doing is I've been looking at how many cars we've had on that car park and how many spaces we've had free at the Breckland one by the Chase and the one in White Hart Street. And on the days I did look, there was enough car parking spaces to facilitate the cars off the square in those spaces. I would say on the whole when I did check. And I'm very pro-car. I'm not anti-car, I'm very pro-car. But I feel on this one, because a lot of people have told me that some of the parking there is by people who are working in the town and the cars are left there permanently. I've done a few checks on that myself without saying too much. So people are getting free parking. It's not like they're coming in for half an hour, for 2 hours and using facilities and then going, which I think is great for the town, keeps the town alive and vibrant. So if those people aren't parking permanently, because they do need somewhere to park when they're working, if they could utilise the spaces that are free in White Hart Street and by the Chase, and if we can motivate them somehow in some way to do that, I would be for making it pedestrianised.
Thank you very much. Perhaps worth reminding everybody that Tanner Street North Car Park is still closed because of the COVID activity that has or has not taken place there. Presumably that will now disappear fairly quickly.
31st of March, I believe.
Pardon?
31st of March.
Gosh, I'm saying gosh, 31st of March doesn't seem very quickly to me, but there we go. I suppose it's only 5 weeks away. So in 5 weeks' time, we will have 54 more spaces, and I think that will help, and it also helps confirm what Councillor Taylor was saying, because with 54 more, there are officially 18 places on the Market Square. I know there are a number of people who park outside the designated bays. That's something that is a part of the problem, I think. So hopefully, if we can maintain the situation until the 31st of May, we'll come into the happy situation of having 54 more spaces, which will certainly help. Councillor Cannon, please.
But just to say, as in part, I believe in what Dennis has just said. The only problem I've got is, if you say you've got free disabled, just say for example, we keep free disabled parking there, who's going to monitor it? Because we know at the moment, where there is no car parks, they're parking there. They're double parking. Well, I mean, we came from the Guildhall, didn't we, the other week? We couldn't get off the staircase because they'd parked there. They'd parked down the little side alley as well. So, you know, I just wonder, if you're keeping the car parks there, who's going to monitor that they are disabled? Because they're not monitored now. So, you know, would that be an expense rather than just saying, right, no parking? I don't know, but I just think it's something we need to think of.
Thank you very much. Can I add a comment about the disabled parking at this stage, because quite a lot of information came out of the survey I carried out around about November time. I think the clear finding I had on disabled parking is this: there are enough disabled spaces, and that of course includes the existing two on the Market Square. The problem is that because there are only 1, 2, 3, at very most 4 in any one car park, you can be the third person to come to a car park where there are only 2 disabled spaces in a short space of time and find that you can't get in. So although there are in fact enough disabled spaces scattered around Thetford, and in many ways it's good they're scattered around so that disabled drivers can park close to where they want to go, the fact remains that there's a liability that when you turn up for a particular space, it's just been occupied by 2 others, and that is difficult. So I think it seems to me, therefore, that we've got to rather over-provide disabled spaces within the town to make it absolutely sure that blue badge holders can find a location without having to go on a general tour around the town. There is a bit of an issue about that. One of the options is to go for option 3 in Council Wright's survey. It may be worth considering whether we could provide extra car parking spaces for disabled drivers elsewhere, such as more on Wells Street, particularly if it can be shown that it's difficult to provide disabled sites on the marketplace and at the same time as you're using the marketplace for something else. I don't think anyone's quite locked into that unless Councillor Wright's got some comments to make about that. Councillor Taylor again, please.
Yeah, when I first became a councillor and I had my big wagon parked here, I got the shock of my life when I found out that disabled people could actually park on the double yellow lines. I was ignorant of that. And I was regularly blocked in here by everybody parking outside and me not being able to get my van out. So the people who aren't disabled will park on the double yellow lines and they are regularly parked next to Wetherspoons. So I'm just wondering if we can get on through the county councillors to try and get a couple of parking bays for the disabled there, because they are parking there anyway. We could somehow sponsor them, but I do agree that if we put some disabled parking bays within the square, policing it will be a nightmare, because you will get more than the bays parking on it and then potentially other people as well. And if it's not getting policed, I would go the whole hog and close the whole car park and then facilitate the disabled somewhere else quite close.
I'm somewhat worried by that last comment because I absolutely agree with you, and it's a matter of some concern. I will be consulting my advisors. I've got selection, colleagues. Councillor Robinson, Councillor Brain, followed by Councillor Jeremy. So Councillor Robinson first, please.
Thank you. Probably just very briefly, actually, I felt like I drank all the baby then. Show my age. Thank you. First of all, I think we need to probably lift the conversation, to be blunt, because we're talking about the future use of the space. And at the moment we're focusing on one aspect of one of the issues, that if we change the use for the space, it's an obstacle we need to overcome. But when I read the report and I looked at option 3 about the provision of disabled spaces in that space, what the report doesn't tell me is how we're going to manage the mix of pedestrians in a small area and the access and egress of vehicles in the same constrained space. The other thing I don't think we've done, and for anybody watching, they'll be saying, what is the vision? If we, I'm a strong believer we need to be providing anchor sites within our town centres. Pandemic has escalated the decline of our high streets, and our town centres are changing. And just of the personal belief, we need to start providing anchor sites to draw people into our town centres, to give them other options, reasons for going to our town centres for retail. And maybe, just maybe, the marketplace represents one of those anchor sites at the northern end of our town centre. But what we're not given is the vision of what that anchor site could possibly be. We also, what the report doesn't draw out, the information doesn't draw out, if it does become a purely pedestrianised area, it's actually your paved area, the curtilage is greater because it actually runs to the side of Guildhall Street and Wells Street respectively. And we haven't taken that into account. As I say, that's just a short interlude from here at the moment. Mr. Mayor might wish to come back.
Councillor Brame.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I think with the fact that the COVID test centre is going to stop, whether it's 4 weeks or 10 weeks, we're going to have this lovely thing where there are so many more car parking spaces. So people will start to filter down to them. And I think that that is an opportunity for us to look at the market centre, the marketplace, and make it a community place. I have spoken to several of the NHS buses and things, and we are fortunate in Thetford to have a chemo bus that goes up to the Healthy Living Centre every Friday or every other Friday. Now, one of the problems that they're having is people can't park. A bit to do with COVID, but when the hospital places work on that stuff, because it's totally separate from there. They're also having a lot of people saying, we can't get there. There isn't a bus to the sports centre, it drops off too far away. Now, that market square can become a community hub. The days that we want these things to help our community, the breast clinic, the chemo clinic, when there are so many things, the vaccination bus, whether for it or against it, it is right in our town centre. And we should be talking greatly with coach services to make sure that some form of bus comes up Wells Street, because that's your main post office, and it's where the elderly now, a lot of them get their pensions and various other things, because the banks in this town are closing bang, 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 and it's not going to be long before we haven't got one. So the post office, fingers crossed, will become a community centre, more like it used to be. But we should be using that area for all of those sort of things. I've been into several other towns recently where in their market centres they're putting what they call meeting benches and friendly benches, where it's not just a bench where people sit and look at the traffic go by or stop to have a rest, but it is a place for people to meet. There is a table, you can get two families sitting round it. Now we've got the tea rooms in the Guildhall, we've got the new sweet shop, we've got other things that are happening, we've got a chip shop across the other side of the road. Now this can become a real great space where people can come in, sit, meet, and it becomes a proper meeting place. And we use it for the community, for the buses and for all the different community health things that we have in the town. That to me is a vision that I have that makes it something special. And then of course in the evenings, we as a council have a lovely area to put events on. We've already got the seating, and it becomes the centre of Thetford. We keep hearing that with all the new growth, it's all down that end and there's nothing happening this end. Well, the town centre is as close to Abbey, it's as close to Barnham Cross as you're going to get. And it should be a place where all of those people are coming in to use it, not 18 people to park their car for the day. So that would be the vision that I would have, and I would ask that this council looks at it from that point of view.
Thank you very much indeed, and it's great to see a vision appearing as we just talked through it. It's Councillor Jamie, followed by Councillor Crawford.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I've got a couple of points I wanted to make. Firstly, I think we should acknowledge and say thank you to the 300 and plus people who did take part in the consultation. I know it's always frustrating in the town the size of Thetford that more people don't choose to respond, but actually I'm very grateful to those that have responded, and I've certainly read through the report and sort of taken on board the sort of conclusion, if you like, for what worth it is. It's fairly 50-50, but nevertheless it is actually really useful. I was really pleased to be able to spend 2 days on the Market Square with Chris Harvey and yourself on the Saturday, talking to people face to face about this, because I've got my own view, but I do want to hear other views as well, and actually it really helped with my own views. I've learned two things from that process. Firstly, there are people very much in support of that becoming a pedestrianised area. Initially, I must confess, I thought it was sort of limited to people who are councillors or officers in support of this. I genuinely thought, everybody outside wanted it to stay a car park. But, I have met people over the last few weeks who actually completely do agree with the idea of it becoming pedestrianised. And I think that's come out in the consultation. The other thing a bit more depressing is I've spoke to so many people, dozens over the last few weeks, who either did fill in the consultation or didn't, but said, what's the point? What's the point? Because the council, are not going to listen to us. So I remember the bus station consultation. I think I'll be dead and gone and people will still be talking about the bus station parish poll. But actually there was a real sort of apathy amongst people about why get involved in consultation. And I think that's something that we need to be aware of as elected members. We saw last week with the by-election, turnout of 20%. We want people to be involved and engaged and taking part in consultations. And I know it's difficult sometimes, you can't force people to respond, but it really did sort of leave a sort of on my mind that actually it was very difficult to talk to people who were so despondent and sort of apathetic. And so I've been sort of thinking in my own head about what my vote would be, because I knew we would make a decision tonight, one way or the other. And for me, the basic fact, which I always go back to, whatever we want to achieve on that space, or certainly the vast majority of the vision of it being an event space and somewhere for buses, what is stopping us now? We have ultimate control over that space. We don't have a cap on the number of times that we can shut it off. We can shut it off 7 days a week. We can shut it off all month now. If we wanted a Dad's Army Festival in June, or a night market one evening, or if we wanted to do all sorts of things, we have the power to close that off. I really worry that if we do pedestrianise it, for want of a better word, for huge chunks of the year, it's going to sit empty. It's going to be dead space, effectively. And I just come back to the point that I would much rather a mix of it being put to good use as a car park for probably the lion's share of the year, but then a significant amount of time being used for events and that sort of thing. And the reason I say that is because the car is still important, actually. In Thetford, we don't have a huge retail offer. We rely on people, convenience for people that work, being able to pop into the town on the way home. We rely on people from the villages being able to come into Thetford conveniently. And we also rely on sort of, people with mobility. We don't want to discriminate or disencourage. We don't want to not encourage people from anybody from coming in and spending their money. Frankly, we need people to be able to come in, and convenience is key. I've been here long enough now that I've, without wishing to be rude, I've heard it all before. I remember the proposal put forward for King Square. We were going to have electric sockets. That was going to be an event space. We were going to do all sorts of wonderful things at King Square. We've got On the Green, which proved a fantastic location for events and activities. We've got a whole church next door in St Peter, sat there not doing anything. And we've got King's House Gardens. Again, I remember when I joined the council, there were regular concerts, regular theatre performances and stuff going on in King's House Gardens. We have lots of locations within the town centre to do stuff. But we're ultimately going to take away a useful car park and put stuff there which could actually be accommodated elsewhere. So I'm afraid I am going to vote for, I think it was the option 1, to retain the status quo. But whatever we choose to do, I think Dennis's point is really valid about disabled residents, because the other thing that really struck me was the concern from people who were disabled, certainly when Chris and I stood on the Market Square, saying they find it difficult to find somewhere to park. I think there is a lack of disabled spaces in town. My dad has a blue badge. He tells me all the time how he struggles to park. He can't walk far. The other thing is the availability of drop curbs. Actually, nearly universal. Everybody that was disabled said to me, and I said, look, you have to let us know as councillors where drops curb. I don't use a wheelchair. I'm completely blind. Oh, probably won't phrase the word. Completely biased against where a drop curb is needed. So I think we as a council need to take that on board whatever we do, because there is an issue with disabled access and connectivity around the town. But I sense this will probably go through for pedestrianisation in some form, but I'm afraid I won't be supporting it. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I'm going to just interrupt your thoughts for a minute, Dennis, if I may, and let you come next. I think there's a lot of meat in that in those series of comments. I think we did begin by saying it was 50-50, and I think there's an issue about whether that's strictly accurate. If we look at terms of simplifying and saying those in favour of continuing with cars or those in favour of having people, there's quite a strong majority in favour of the latter. Because you have to add the 68 and 153 together, if I can remember the numbers correctly, as against the 150 who voted for cars. I would express a lot of concern, and I say it again, there are only 18 car parking places on a road. It's a very, very tiny number. We have something like 560 spaces in Thetford. 18 is not a huge percentage of that. So I would question whether it's really an answer to everyone's wishes to be able to park very near where they want to go to. I think also you can argue the question of whether shopping is helped or hindered by having a car park there. We talk now about the offer that a town centre has. What does it offer? What does it offer to bring you into the town when you can shop online and you can shop in large off-centre retail conurbations, I was going to call them, retail parks? What I would have thought we want to be looking at is a combination of shopping to support the existing traders, markets, places to sit and drink and sit and eat, activities. There are a number of things that can be done, and I think it's interesting that although we hadn't thought about it before, already during the course of the conversation, when someone said we've got to ask what on earth the vision is, we got some answers straight away. There will be many more that will emerge. So I'm confident myself, and I'm declaring my interest as well, that we ought to consider closing the Market Square to vehicles and encouraging the development of a pedestrian area, particularly at a time when we are, as a nation, supposed to be encouraging good health, walking and cycling. And that seems to me a good start for us as a town council to take the lead on that issue. There's more I could say, and I think it's a bit unfair for me to go on too much. So, and we have a selection of voices wishing to speak, and I'll just read you out so you know you've been spotted. So we have Councillor Crawford, Councillor Wright, Councillor Taylor, Councillor Jeremy, and Councillor Barretto. At the moment, Councillor Crawford, the floor is yours.
Yeah, thank you very much, Chair. I hope I'm not cutting things short, but I was going to propose that we put forward option 3 to the vote, with the proviso that we move the parking spaces that we have for the disabled to a place close by. £2. That's what I wanted to propose, but if other people want to talk, we'll just keep talking.
Before I go on to Councillor Wright,
yes, I have a seconder.
I was going to ask Councillor Wright whether you felt this is the appropriate thing to do. That were you hoping that we would get this evening to the point of having made a decision of the kind that Councillor Jamie referred to, so we decide for option 1, 2 or 3 or a combination thereof? Is that the plan, do you think?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Yes, the idea is we make a decision tonight, so we do have a bit of clarity on the way forward. We've batted this around for quite a while now, over the last couple of years. We've responded to the request for a consultation, which we have duly delivered. And as the paper said, the decision required there is to try and give us a steer and a definitive answer tonight, so that we can then take the thing forward. if I may continue in terms of the response to some of the points raised, the vision, I'm very conscious that we do need a vision, but for those that did read the preamble to the consultation and also working in the working group, we did discuss what the vision would entail. It's all very well saying you may want fountains, you may want all this bits and pieces, but at that stage we couldn't promise to deliver that, and it was felt to pare down to the decision of making a usable space. There may be noises of historic England and that helping out in terms of resurfacing and making it more aesthetic appearance, because at the moment a tarmac space with some white lines on doesn't really complement the lovely new steps that we have on the Guildhall. So one would hope that we can set our sights a little higher than having it just open as a car park space as it is now with the white lines burnt off. I take on board Councillor Braham's point about using it for community use, and I think that was something that we brought out in the working group, that it wasn't just about putting events on, it was also making it a space that could be used for the community. So the likes of having pop-up stalls, if events are going on, the buses that you spoke about, the chemo bus and things like that, brilliant. Gives them a place in the town centre, accessible to all that they can come to. So I think those ideas can be developed. What I'm very conscious of is our remembrance service, though, and we do need to have a flexible space that can cater for that remembrance service. So whatever vision we have, we do need to be able to cater for that, and I think that's my red line, really, that we do have to keep that as a really good space, because focusing on that war memorial, we can't do it anywhere else, and that's something that as a town we should really pay reference to. The idea of policing disabled spaces, I think, is rightly raised, because if you put them on there, it does actually eat into the space of the marketplace that could be used for pedestrianised or for the events. There is potential of relocating some of the taxi rank spaces in Wells Street across to where the build out is, where the green lectern is, and then replacing those taxi ranks with extra disabled spaces, which will be nearer to the post office, which I think is the concern that we have. I forgot to mention, there's another disabled space down by the School Lane surgery, and I think with the Breckland are coming to talk to us about the parking, I think at the next planning meeting, and again with the Breckland car parking, we can probably bring out some more about the disabled spaces and then the spaces we have there. Councillor Taylor's right to say that disabled people do tend to park where they want to, but I think we've also got a space across the way from here, which the old M&Co site behind there, which we need to probably talk to the developers about what their plans are there, because that lends itself to a couple of spaces there for disabled, which allows it accessible to this end. But they, I think, are looking to service their buildings there. But I think it's a conversation we need to have. The idea of benches and people sitting down and having that open space, I think, is the way forward. The world has changed. Our retail offer has changed. We aren't going to go back to full shops. We do need to make it an activity area so things are happening. And you see a couple of old boys meeting up on the horse trough every morning, having a jaw. Give them a bench to sit down on. We need to develop this as a meeting place for people to have. We've got benches at the moment all sitting around the edge, so you've got cars brushing by on one side and parked cars on the other. Let's make it a little bit more pleasing to the eye to sit down there and have it. So I think there's work to be done on the vision, and I think there's work to be done in terms of where we get that funding for. There's some short-term wins which we can deliver if we do make that decision to pedestrianise that. So I'm quite happy to talk more through this, but I do think we do need to make a decision tonight, Mr. Mayor.
I think, Councillor Wright, that you were very close at one point to agreeing with what Councillor Crawford had suggested. I don't know whether that means you're prepared to second it.
I'm prepared to second it.
Thank you very much for that. So we'll take those who wish to talk, but that's what we'll probably end up voting on, at least initially. There is a long list, so taking advice from come and call you the mayor-elect now, what I'm going to suggest is that I will allow everyone on that list to speak once, but it will be the last time you spoke if you've had a couple of goes before. So, Councillor Taylor, you're next for your final comment on this particular item, Councillor Taylor.
Yeah, I don't want to give too much away. I said I wouldn't name names, but over the 3 days of the information that I got, the cars that parked there very early in the morning were still there in the evening. So that points to who and what they do. Now, that should influence decisions, because it's not short-term shoppers and people picking up. It's people who are parking there for the day.
Agreed. Councillor Jeremy, please.
It's been covered, thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Barretto.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Initially, when this issue came up, I was very much in favour of just making the all area pedestrianised and make events and using the space as it was. I was also quite adamant that we should retain a few disabled spaces to allow accessibility for those that need it. Now, I take on board Councillor Wright's point that if the area where the taxis, if they can be moved and those can be made into disabled spaces, there's so much closer together that they will sort the disabled spaces need. On the other hand, I'm really divided at the moment, because speaking to other businesses around the marketplace, the businesses are really concerned if you take away all the parking, the people that come into town, my business will die. Now, I particularly like to see events and wonderful things happening in that space, and the whole area is just vitalized for people to get together. And I still think that's a good idea for part of the time. But not for the whole of the time, because I think Councillor Jeremy might have a point. If we don't have a plan for what's going to happen constantly on that space will become sort of dead space throughout the week, particularly in the winter and times of the year where there's nothing really that we can do, open air events or whatever that may be. So bearing that in mind, I would be in favour of continuing with the partially as a car park with the option to close it for events and try to promote more events, making more closures, to use for more events, actually developing that side of things rather than closing the car park altogether. And that's really in respect for the people and the businesses around, because my opinion is my own, but ultimately trying to represent the people that elect us, I have to take in consideration their opinion, and the businesses around it don't want the car park to be closed because their business will suffer. Thank you.
I think we need to listen to what Councillor Taylor said about who uses the car park and remind ourselves yet again that there are 18 spaces. It's a very small number. Can I also point out to you that if you walk around the town every day, as I do, you will see people having a lunch on the seats around the market square. They are at the moment able to look at the parked cars most days, but they might be more numerous if there was a more attractive vision, or just no vision at all, just something that it doesn't detract in quite the way that the back of that an exhaust pipe does. We're trying to look at last turns, Councillor Jamie. I did say that was your last turn, so I'm not sure if you're going to get another turn, but we've got Councillor Harvey, Councillor Parker, Councillor Crawford, Councillor Robinson, and then we'll review where we've got to. So Councillor Harvey next, please.
Thank you, Mayor. I've always been in favour of keeping the car park open. It's always been a car park since I was a kid and brought up here. The parking issue is a problem and it needs to be looked at. I had to say this to Councillor, I went and spoke to the business owners round by, they wanted the car park left open. I have this horrible feeling that if we decide to close that car park, there's going to be a big black hole set in the middle of the town and nothing happens. That's what bothers me. I'm all, if we can shut it and we have the power put in and we can have things on there, great. But I have this horrible feeling it's just going to be just a black hole and sit there doing nothing.
We spent some time, didn't we, allowing a well-known pub chain to...
Can I raise a point of order, Mr. Mayor? I'm sorry, I'm restraining myself here because I do regard you as a dear friend. Our constitution requires the chairman to chair the meetings impartially and fairly. We should hear from the speakers. I know you're passionate about this issue, I really do, but your role as chairman is to chair this meeting, not to constantly tell us your own point of view.
Thank you very much for putting me right. I haven't actually timed it, but I'm prepared to bet that I've not spoken the most of anyone on this occasion. But I'll take the hint and let.
Sorry.
I think I've probably spoken less than you actually. I'll take the hint and move on to Councillor Parker, who's definitely not spoken at all before. So your floor is yours.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Yes, first of all, I'd like very much to congratulate all those that have worked so hard to bring the relevant information to not only this council but the general public. I'm very impressed with what I've read about the issue. I must say that when it first came to my attention, I should say, I was very much pro car park. But because of the way and the work that's been done, especially with the reviews about the use of car parks fairly near to the market square, that was done towards the end of last year, which I was very interested in, and other information, I now realise that we stand a chance of making a serious change to the town, and I very much support the try of the car park. What it actually, of making it a pedestrianised area as opposed to the car park as it was. What I'm slightly concerned about is the amount of area that would need it to have, say for argument's sake, 2 disabled spaces within that arena, allowing for cars to be able to negotiate from the highway and turn into the space. It would be quite a big part of that area to be used just to create 2 more disabled places. And I'm wondering if there would be a better solution if, for instance, we completely closed the car park off from cars, made it a pedestrianised area, maybe encourage the new tenants of part of the Brambles and Wetherspoons and others to bring their businesses out into the open more. If we could possibly encourage people to do that, it would look more attractive to those if there was no cars at all in that area. And it may be that, as Councillor Jeremy said, that it's to us, we can open and close it accordingly. It may well be, if it's no good, it doesn't work. If it was a black hole, like you mentioned, then okay, we could open it again. We don't have to spend any money on white paint lines or anything like that straight away, I'm sure. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you very much indeed. Councillor Crawford, can I suggest this will be your last opportunity on this item, please?
Absolutely. Just a couple of things I want to point out. One, that is one of the few areas in Thetford that Thetford Council has complete control of. All the other areas that Councillor Jeremy mentioned belong to other organisations, and we have to ask permission to do anything in them, and that's including King's House Gardens and the stage area in the town and everything. So it is an area that we have control of and ownership of. So it is an area that we should be developing to our best of our abilities. And I think going completely pedestrianised and looking for a couple of other places to put the parking for disabled people would be it. So I go back to my proposition I made earlier, that we completely pedestrianise it and replace the disabled ones with other areas.
Thank you very much.
And that was seconded,
It was seconded by Councillor Wright. Councillor Robinson, please.
Thank you. So I should imagine the objective here is to increase footfall into our town centre, support our town centre. I should imagine that's the overall objective of what we're trying to achieve tonight. Interesting enough, the 2 issues that we're talking about, making it a pedestrian space, or like I call it an anchor space, or the parking, by the way, my aside to the parking is because we haven't managed the space since it's been in our ownership. And that's why we have poor, inadequate parking on that space, because we haven't managed it. We need to take responsibility for that. But I wonder if we're missing a trick, because we're actually looking to make a significant change beyond some of the issues we've been talking about. The car park in Town Street reopens on the 31st, but we're talking about making a fundamental change within our locality that people will still impact our community in 10 years' time. So maybe there's a simpler option for us going forward. we've heard Councillor Jeremy already highlight the fact that we have the ability to close that space for events going forward. So maybe we need to keep the car park and develop a calendar of events, an annual calendar of events, delivering events in the evenings and weekends, and we can then close it and deliver those events that we talk about. Because I'm not quite sure I've been sold a vision tonight, and I don't think necessarily we have the capacity to deliver all those events. We had some rather successful night markets on there. When we talk about, you know, supporting the retail, we forget our nighttime economy. It's just as important as what we deliver during the day. So maybe there's a simpler solution. Manage the space better as a car park and develop an annual calendar of events and a programme that we can deliver in that space. And as I say, work with partners on that as well. So that would be my counter actually to Dennis's proposal.
Thank you.
Are you proposing that as a council proposal?
Councillor Brain, please.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. As I say, it is an opportunity for the town to do something. We could possibly put some lovely bike racks in there, so that we could put a chain across King Street and say, park your bloody bike over there, because that's one of the biggest things that upset people more than anything in this town, is you can't safely walk down King Street. So it might just be another part of the vision. My biggest concern about this, we can close it down whenever we like, is lovely. 136 people thought it would make a good car park, which is a really small amount, and it is a great shame, as Councillor Jeremy says, we need to work better with the people and get more and more people to have an opinion, because they don't do that enough. So you have to take it with a small pinch of salt. But I do honestly believe that you're going to upset more than 156 people a year if they don't know when that damn thing's open and when that's shut. It's all very well to say we have the power. You stand on that marketplace when we close it on a Saturday for the market, and the people who try and turn in by what was the Library and is now the Legion, that swear, you know, and the people that don't take their cars off on a Friday night that we have to move, you know, and to have oh, it might be, it could be, it should be, seems to me wrong. I think this council needs to stand up and say, we're going to make a difference to this town, as they've done in Brandon and various other places, and have this community space in the centre of our town. If it don't work, you make it into a car park. It's not the biggest expense in the world to paint the lines back on. Let's do it. Let's work at it and give the people of Thetford something unique to Thetford.
I think we've got Councillor Dowling, who's not spoken before. Councillor Robinson, you have had your last word officially.
So I can't respond to that.
2 hours. 3 minutes till 2 hours.
We're nearly up to 2 hours. Oh gosh, am I slow? I shouldn't have said that. Well, it was my watch slow. If we're coming up to 2 hours, I do need to seek your permission, colleagues, to continue. Are you agreeable to continue this debate beyond the 2 hour limit?
Agreed.
I think that's a majority, so thank you very much for that. Thanks if that came from Chris as well. It's Councillor Dowling, please.
Mr. Mayor, I just want to raise a point.
Is it a point that, I mean, I don't wish to be cutting you down, but...
No, I have spoken twice, but Mr. Mayor, I will point out you've spoken on this item regularly, more than twice, and actually I would like to respond to Councillor Brain's point, because we could be proactive, we could follow the examples of King's Dean, Cromer, Sheringham, all publish an annual calendar of events where they close public spaces. It is not beyond the wit of man that we could do that too. I won't make any more comments.
Well, thank you, but I mean, you're now making the point that I was making in answering other people's points and then getting heavily criticised for it, may I say, by my erstwhile friend, Councillor Jeremy. Councillor, can we come to Councillor Dowling, please?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I just wonder, with all these different proposals, that nobody's mentioned about green issues and the fact that we should be encouraging less cars in any town centre. And when I first saw these proposals, I thought, just as Councillor Beretta said, that it should be a public space and it was an ideal opportunity to redevelop that area. But I have been contacted by so many people who've been worried about the disabled parking that it obviously is a really big issue for some people. So I'm quite torn as well now that I think it is an opportunity to redevelop it and make it something special. But I'm guessing that we're not going to have a lot of money to spend on it anyway. And I guess my worry is that it will end up being neither one thing nor the other, that if it's a car park sometimes and for events something else, and yet it still looks as it looks now, I don't know, I just think there isn't a lot of advantage in that. And I think perhaps a third option, which is having it as an area but with some disabled space, or if not there, guaranteed spaces somewhere else, because I know it is a really big issue for people. And saying there's disabled spaces in other places is not quite the same, because people can't walk very far, can they, or travel very far?
It's certainly a big issue, and you can see that from the numbers of people who want to speak and the numbers of people like myself who want to have 17 speeches. It is possible, of course, to say that even if we agreed to the motion that we're about to get to, that it isn't forever. So we do have an issue about whether we are actually deciding something that could never be reversed. At the moment, we're not. Councillor Burrito, you're next, please.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. If I may, we're trying to fine-tune the issue about if we have it as a car park and then some days it's a car park and some days it is, and people will, for the lack of consistency, people will know when they can use and cannot. We can go down the line of making calendar events, or you can make it a bit more precise, make it clear to people there's certain days of the week it can be used as a car park. Say Sundays and the market day, the park is closed. And if we have to put an event, we'll put it on a Sunday. Or we close it after a certain time in the evening, I would say for 6 months of the year. And then just, I know that some people park the car there, it'll be an issue trying to move the cars away. I'm well aware of that. So perhaps something like having it seasonal. I mean, for people that have the shops around, the ones that actually been saying if you close a car park, our businesses will suffer, and that's the ones I'm trying to represent and give a voice to at the moment, regardless of what I think about it, is that in the peak of the winter, when it's pouring rain, people don't want to be walking from the car park across the town under pouring rain or snow to come and shop a couple of items in the marketplace from the shops around. So they want the convenience of being able to park closely so they can actually use those shops, get in, get out, get going. So perhaps we can even give it a bit more consistency. We can close the car park for 3-4 months of the year during the high season, create the calendar events, put them on, promote that area, bring the people into the town, and open the rest of the year where the weather is worse and where there's nothing that we can put on, because financially the council won't be able to put on something every day, from my perspective, and just make it a seasonal thing, just open it part of the year for events, close it as a car park, keep it as a car park the rest of the year. Thank you.
You may make a point of order.
Thank you. My point of order is, I thought under the council's rules that once a proposition has been made and a seconder has been done, we go to the vote. And we haven't done that. We've had a very long discussion, and every time I've made the proposition, we have not gone to the vote. I'm all for opening up conversations to people, but if a proposition is made, we should be going to the vote if it's seconded. Thank you, Chair.
Councillor Tullett has indicated to speak, but you need to be guided on standing orders by the Mr. Mayor.
We have not forgotten the proposal that was made. This is, as has been said a number of times, a very important item, and I'm hoping that if we allow discussion to continue, we are more likely to get to the right answer.
Mr. Chair,
well, then I'll want
I
more.
apologise to interrupt, but in that point I agree with Councillor Crawford. He has his proposal, he has his seconder. I would like to put a proposal. We keep the space as.
We're sorry, no, we can't have a second proposition, thank you. We've got a proposition, we don't need any more propositions. We are going to get round to voting to it, Councillor.
Well, if everybody's going to continue talking, I would like to have another opportunity to talk again.
No, I don't think everybody is continuing.
I'll go to the vote. If we're not going to vote and everybody's going to talk, then I'm going to continue.
Councillor, you've been told there will be a vote.
When?
I'm attempting
When
to.
it happens.
When I think that the majority of councillors, ideally all councillors, have had an opportunity to express themselves a reasonable amount. I can't read that, or is it you?
No, it's Councillor Tullett has indicated to speak, but I would suggest that you're
Thank you
led
very much
by
indeed.
the clerk
Okay.
in terms of
Right.
interpreting
I don't want to
standing
lose
orders.
you if you wanted to speak.
No,
Councillor Tullett, please.
I live in town and I tend to walk through town most days, and most people seem to be socialising downtown and buying few items the times they are meeting up with people. So my opinion is that the marketplace would be an extra space for them to enjoy. If you look at it logically, the car park is closed on Tuesdays and Saturdays. These are the busiest days of the week. Well, if people cope with parking on Tuesdays and Fridays, do they really need those extra spaces the other days of the week? And also, we've had our events manager at the Guildhall since last August. I can't believe how much that's developed, the events at the Guildhall, and how much that's come along, and the coffee shop. I mean, I'm sure there are so many more ideas that are waiting to be put forward for the Guildhall, and that closing the car park would facilitate those. I do have some concerns about disabled parking, but if the extras, because I think it will be people. I mean, you can see the way that the car parking is abused now. That if you leave the access open for disabled, that people are going to take that as the opportunity to park where they want. I mean, I've seen people parking by the church. You know, it just seems to be any gap they take advantage of. So if disabled parking be looked at other spaces with adequate room for people to get out of the cars, I mean, it's well and good to say that they can park anywhere. You need the space to get out of the car when you're disabled. You can't just do it anywhere. So in my opinion, if the car park is closed on the Tuesdays and Saturdays, then you can cope the other days of the week as well.
Thank you very much, Councillor. I'm going to suggest that we've now had an opportunity to speak and we should be moving to the vote. Councillor Crawford, are you in a position to repeat your...
My proposal is that we close the car park in entirety, seek out some disabled parking close by, and use it as a space. I think a hybrid option is best. So that's my proposal.
Thank you very much indeed. That's the proposal. We have had a seconder. Can I ask you to vote, firstly, in favour of that proposal?
You keep your hands up, please. Thank you very much. Make it 12. 12-4.
Thank you very much. Those against?
1, 2, 3, 4. That's it. Thank you.
If it's not, it can't be 12-4.
Yeah, 16.
I didn't vote.
16.
That means there's 17 councillors present.
Who is the imposter?
I think it was 11 on the fours. I think I counted the mayor.
Because
I didn't use them in my calculations, and it was 11.
Yes, I agree with you. 11 votes to 4.
I just assumed that he must have snuck his hand up.
The motion is therefore carried. Hang on, Councillor Taylor, please. The motion is therefore carried, and I don't know whether you think, Councillor Wright, that's a matter to now give it a rest for another month and come back to it, or whether you think there's more to be achieved now. Give you an opportunity to say so either way, if you wish.
I think that's the business done for this evening. But I would suggest that, taking on board the comments regarding vision and that, we now have a guidance of what we want to do. So we now start putting a plan in action. And that obviously does entail talking about the disabled spaces and getting those moved in the short term as well. So I think the working group should be stood up to take it forward based on the decision we've made tonight.
Thank you very much indeed. Councillor Taylor briefly, followed by Councillor Barreto briefly.
My apologies, Mr. Chairman, but I have to go and be stupid elsewhere.
Thank you very much indeed.
My turn?
Yes.
Yes, it is.
Wonderful. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Just a very quick question. Who's going to inform, if you press the motion to close the car park to cars, as everybody voted seems to go that way, which is fine, democracy first. Who's going to inform the businesses, and particularly the ones that are your tenants, that you're going to close the car park altogether in front of their shops? Because I wouldn't want to be the person doing that.
Volunteering. Yeah, I'll volunteer.
That's wonderful.
Yeah,
Then thank you.
I'll volunteer.
Thank you, Councillor Brown.
I have spoken to them in the past, and I think their fears are unfounded.
Councillor Harvey, please.
Okay, fair enough.
Can I just ask when the working group is going to meet again, or will it be the same councillors to take this forward?
Sorry, are you asking me? I think the working group's already been established, hasn't it?
Yeah, it has, yeah.
And
Yes.
if I will speak with Councillor Wright, and I'll get a date out to the people at my early as I can.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Councillor Wright.
If I may, Mr. Mayor, I would suggest that the working group be open to all councillors who wish to participate in adding to that, rather than suggesting it was those who put their hand up at last time.
Totally agree.
So it's a separate working group that's been set up.
Could I just say, if any other councillors want to be on it, if you can just ping me an email tonight or tomorrow morning, I'll make sure that you're added to the invite. Thank you. If I can have it in writing, that'd be great, because I might have forgotten by tomorrow morning.
Can I thank Councillor Wright for his leadership? Can I thank you all, colleagues, for your extraordinary range of comments, which I think is something that the minutes will record and we can work on and use as an attempt, so far as humanly possible, to satisfy all the comments that have been made. And I'm grateful for those who needed to say it, but we all felt it. I think that we're looking to take Thetford forward, and I hope that's what we will achieve. Thank you for your patience while we dealt with that lengthy because important item, and I'm going to move on to the next item now, please, which is 779, to discuss and agree any consultation or media release required. Any comments or suggestions, please, about that? There is from Councillor James.
I would suggest that the decision made here tonight on the previous agenda item, as correctly highlighted by Councillor Barretto, be shared with our residents.
Agreed. Absolutely. Thank you. Did you wish to speak? I'll come to Councillor Brain.
That was the point I was making.
Pardon?
That was the point I was going to make.
Thank you very much, Councillor Brain.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I agree entirely with the point that was made, and I do also think that it's very necessary that our residents all know that we now have a new mayor-elect and a deputy mayor that have been elected tonight. They are the two foremost people of the town, and I think perhaps we should let the residents know who they are.
Thank you. It's good to be kept on the straight and narrow. So there are two really important items to. Can we ask that we work on that tomorrow?
Yeah, certainly.
So that's community engagement, two vital items to be discussed, to be offered to the public in particular, though it does say media as well. 780, committee officers update. Is there any update from the committee officer, please?
Only to say that I did send out an email this afternoon, if you haven't had a chance to look at it, about parking enforcement trials that Breckland have been carrying out in the other market towns. Swapham have had theirs, Attleborough are about to start theirs. So it'll be up for discussion on planning, because I think the closing date is the 9th of March, which is the day after planning, if we wanted to be considered for anything this year. There is a 6-month lead into any trial happening, and they're putting in the paperwork now, so if it was decided to leave it to see the outcome for Attleborough, for instance, nothing would happen again until next year. But, you know, I'll have more information for councillors for planning.
Thank you very much.
Councillor Robinson's indicated to speak. I hope that one.
Councillor Robinson, I think it's been spotted that you'd like to speak.
Just so it dawned on me while I was sitting there listening to the remnants of our meeting. Is there a formal process beyond this meeting? It dawned on me. We get social media is lively for us as a body. Is there a formal process within the committees or generally for councillors to get those media, community engagement? Because this is the only formal meeting once a month that I'm aware of where we have the opportunity to put stories out. And this tonight, the decision we've made, I would suggest has very much a political impact. I use that with a very small p, by the way. A very small p. It will affect every resident. And I just wondered if there's a formal process in the system.
It's actually an agenda item on all the committees. It's a standing agenda item on all the committee agendas.
Can I just come back? Not everything goes through the committees. And there might be items, for instance, that we want to draw forward. I would suggest, Storm Eunice maybe not the best example. I just wondered if there was another process outside the committees.
If people come to me like you're talking about citizens' advice, I believe that's Tom. They've sent me posters today, which has gone to Tom. That will go out on Thetford Town Council. Yeah. So if we get that information, we got the information for the storms that went out as well. So if information does come in to us, we're more than happy to put that out through our media channels.
Yes, please.
I don't about making the point, I appreciate that, but I'm on about us as a collective, how we feed stuff in and get sign off.
You just send it into myself.
Collectively though, because you can't do it on the basis of an individual council. We have a collective responsibility in the communications we put out as a body. I just wondered, it's a curiosity question.
If it came in and it was a big item that you wanted to have, I would put it as an agenda item so that councillors could discuss what they wanted to be put out. I don't think any individuals would make that decision.
Thank you. And I know there's a formal process, and I know you all want me to shut up, but I'm going to keep going at it, I'm afraid. It's the informal process outside of meetings.
No.
So could we look at it?
But then it would not be going through the council and would not be representative of the council.
I shall remain mute.
I'm hoping that Councillor Wright will throw some light.
I think I accept not everything goes through the committee, so there will be instances where, as a council, we want to put something out, and we do charge the clerk with the responsibility as gatekeeper for that information. I know under venues and communications in its previous guise, we did talk about the process of how we impart information, and we can't all gung-ho go off there and individual councillors say this is the view of the council. So there is a process in place, Mark, Councillor Robinson, and I think we can look at that and review that and bring that forward to the next venues and communications if that needs updating. But if it's a decision of a committee, then again that would be put forward as an item to be shared with the public. If it is a big decision, then it obviously has to be ratified by full council, which again would come through on the agenda that we've got there, and so community engagement can there. But there will be things, and you're right, that wouldn't hit a committee but may impact on the town or the perception of this town council. But basically, the town clerk is that gatekeeper, and we really rely upon the town clerk to stand there, and if it's of urgency, make a decision, probably in conjunction with the mayor. But if it's not that urgent, then bring it to us as councillors to give her guidance in that respect. But I think there is a process. I think we probably just need to have a look at it, but I think the process is there.
Thank you very much indeed. Are you happy with Councillor Romsted? Are you prepared to leave it there?
For the moment.
How very kind. Thank you very much. You probably judge your audience very well. So on to the, is it the penultimate item? 781, exclusion of press and public. I think there is some need. I'm looking at Chris Crimmon to see if this is right. We've got some bits below the line.
There are two items.
I think we have. So therefore, colleagues, to consider resolving that, pursuant to the Public Bodies Admission to Meetings Act 1960, The press and public be excluded for any remaining items of business on the grounds that publicity would be prejudicial to the public interest by reason of the confidential nature of the business to be discussed. So thank you, members of the public, for attending, and we wish you a good evening.
Yeah, are we allowed to do that now?
10 seconds.
Councillor Callum's indicated to you, Mr Mayor.
Councillor Callum.
Yeah. We're not on camera now, so vote.
Not only that, but we don't even need to stand up to address the mayor. How about that as a privilege?
I will, because
the doors
sometimes
are still open.
Hang on,
the
hang
doors
on.
are still open.
We're hoping that...
yeah. Sometimes it gets very confusing when we've got a big debate going on, because two people will speak and then somebody puts a recommendation down, and straight away that person said, but you've got to take my recommendation. Well, actually, isn't there protocol where everybody that wants to speak